Okay. So in today's class, we are going to touch upon and to learn the special significance of the heel. Okay, this week's parsha is called Eikev. Eikev literally means the heel, and what is very interesting is that they say that so much of our healing process comes from, in the olden days, what they used to do is they used to let out blood. Believe it or not, they were called doctors, and that was what it was. They were bloodletters, but they used to let out the blood from the heel. And from the heel is where all of the healing came about. So I'm not sure if the word heal comes from the word heal, but definitely spelled differently. But it is an interesting phenomenon that a lot of our healing comes from the lowest parts of ourselves, right? That extremity, that part of our heel. And in today's class, we are going to talk about listening beyond the triggers. Listening beyond the triggers, okay? So, we're all triggered at all times by so many different things that go on in our lives, multiple things that go on in our lives on hour-to-hour, moment-to-moment basis. That's the way we are built. We're made to be triggered, basically. So it's not something strange to be triggered by people, by getting stuck in traffic, by all types of rude individuals that may be around us, right, that we may encounter, by reactions that we may have. All those things are what are called our levels of the healing, which is waiting to be made. Okay, so in today's class, we're going to jump into this concept of the heel and the concept of how to heal based on going into that part of ourselves, which is the unconscious part of ourselves, the parts of our beings that are not discovered, that are not seen, that are triggered by events, by people, etc. Where do they come from, and how do we grow from such experiences? So, as usual, we live with a weekly parsha. The weekly parsha is such a strong modality of connecting to the times that we're in. And in Parshat Eikev, okay, we learn about Vaya Eikev Tishmeun, and it will be in the Eikev, literally in the heels, you will hear. So there are two basic commentaries that give us, in a way, contradictory, on a surface level, contradictory level explanations. So the first one, Vaya Eikev Tishmeun. So the commentary Rashi brought from the sages, the classical explanation says Vaya Eikev Tishmeun. It refers to the mitzvot, to the deeds, to the actions that a person tramples literally with their heel. That there's all types of situations, and so all types of opportunities, and all types of, again, triggers that we trample over, just like when we walk on our heel. The most desensitized parts of our bodies is our heel. And when we're able to see those things that we're trampling over, Vaya Eikev Tishmeun, and there will be, when we listen and we heed the heel, then there's all these immense blessings which the parsha, which the Torah speaks about. And it just says, and you will keep these edicts, and God will love you and bless you, and bless your offsprings and your land and your produce and your vines, etc. And all of, basically, all the blessings, material blessings, which are possible to have, material and spiritual blessings. And they all come from this notion of listening to those things that we trample over. Vaya Eikev Tishmeun. If we listen to those things that we trample over, we walk over, then all of a sudden we then at that point, the gates of heaven are basically going to open up, and all these amazing blessings are going to come about. That's the first explanation. The second explanation says it refers to Eikev. It refers to the times of Mashiach, right? Eikev tishmun, that at the time of Mashiach, that during that time, Eikev, then you will listen. I'm sorry, excuse me. It's just like a little bit, like when someone's on the phone, like in front of me, it's just a little bit, unless they take notes, it's just a little bit, that's my trigger right now. Okay. and I'll, it's okay. I'm just mentioning. So, okay. So, so the second explanation, the major explanation, which is mentioned by the sages, Vaya Eikev refers to the time of Ikvita de Mashiach, the time which is called the heels of Mashiach, which we're in right now. The heels of Mashiach refers to the end of days, just like the heel is the last part of the bottommost part of the body, right? And so it starts off with the head, right? And it goes down, and it refers to the times that there was expanded consciousness, right, by let's call it the forefathers, the great prophets, etc., going down in history until the time that we're in right now, where we're called the heels of Mashiach. We're called the generation of the heel of the Mashiach. Why? Because our generation and our consciousness is very constricted, right? It's like this heel which is desensitized from, as in comparison to the rest of the body, where if you poke your heel, you stub it, whatever, it doesn't hurt as much as if you would, if other parts of your body would be hurt by that same thing, right? You can walk barefoot, and okay, you'll it won't be that extreme, right? So the time of the time that is before Mashiach, the time that we're in right now, is called Eikev de Mashiach, the time that there seems to be this desensitized parts of ourselves as a humanity, that in the world out there is a desensitization, right? I think that's a word, of feeling the spirituality, feeling the godly consciousness, the higher level consciousness, being more in tune, we could say, is not as pronounced as it was, we could say, in previous days, right? Back in the days. Welcome. You're right on time. Yes. So these two explanations, we've got these two great explanations. I'm going to review them right now. Feel free to sit over here if you. Sure. So the first explanation, we said Eikev refers to the time of the heel of Mashiach, which that's the second rather, the time of desensitized consciousness that's out there. The generation that we're in right now is a generation which is a little less in tune, we could say, or expanded in terms of the ability to understand, right, etc., as opposed to previous generations. That's the second explanation. The first explanation is that it refers to the mitzvot, or the deeds that a person tramples over them. They don't realize that they're being insensitive, basically, in what they're doing, or they're triggered and they react in a certain way that we just, where did that come from? Why did I say that? What hello, like I just reacted in an extreme type of a way. Where did that come from? So there's that level of the Eikev de Mashiach, that heel, the heel of ourselves that is now that is desensitized. So via Eikev tishmum. So these are the two explanations that we're going to concentrate on. But first, I'd like to share with you a beautiful and a profound idea brought by Rav Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. It says as follows: that what is unique about the word Eikev, okay, or let's just start before that Eikev is always read after the holiday of Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, which we celebrated last week. We spoke about last week, right? We always read it afterwards. Why? Okay, so happens to fall out that way? No, but the way sages look at it, everything is exact. Everything's exact. We read this parsha, it comes after this time, and it's very, very exact. So he says like this. He says that the month of Av that we're in right now is a month of extremes. It's a month that we start off, the first half of the month is the first half of the month is a very intense part, is the most intense basically in the whole year, where we go through a lot of like stuff that we just deal with. And I've gotten messages like, why am I feeling this stuff during the 3-week period? Like, why are things happening? And it's just intense, whether you're aware of it or not aware of it, it's intense, right? And it's out there in the universe. It's out there. Why? Because everything, the creation of the world and the godly energetic flow that comes to the world comes from the Torah and comes from everything that's there is auspicious or it's intense. So the first 15 days of the month of Av are very intense. The next 15 days, which we're in right now, basically become transformed. We come up, and it's the new moon, it's the full moon. That full moon experience is a full moon of consciousness that we've now worked on, that part of ourselves that's been super intensely involved with in the first half of the month. So what's interesting, Rav Tzadok says, based on the Sefer Yetzirah, the Arizal says that the month of Av is the month of Shimon. That's basically the tribe. Every month has a different tribe. Shimon comes from the word to listen. Vaya Eikev tishme'un. It will be after you will hear. And the concept of hearing is a very important, profound concept, because next week's parsha is re'eh, to see. But this week we say Eikev tishme'un. What is the difference between hearing, meditating on something, reflecting on something, reflecting on something versus seeing it? Okay. Vaya Eikev tishme'un. The intensity that we go through causes us to now go inward and to now hear what is happening, to listen to ourselves, to listen a little bit deeper. There's an advantage of seeing, because when you see something, it's like obvious, boom, like I saw this, I get it, fine. But there's an advantage, but there's a downside of seeing, because when downside of seeing is like you take it for granted. And that's why marketing tools are just like right there all the time at us, right? But we miss out on going a little bit deeper beyond the surface, because we just get this like, boom, what's coming at us. So we have seeing, but then we have hearing. What's hearing? Why is hearing so much more profound? Because exactly, right? Hearing, now my eyes are closed, right? When we close our eyes, we could see, we don't see physically, but we feel, we sense much more than the limitation that is here within the space of this, room that we're sitting in. When we close our eyes, right? I remember having this experience, and maybe you guys did as well, when you were a child and you were just closed your eyes and you're like, something's out there. And I remember having this experience when I was 7 years old, like going to sleep, my eyes were closed, and I was like, there's something more out here that I'm definitely feeling. And I remember it was my first like spiritual experience of like, is there anyone out there? Is there anything out there? Yeah, I heard about God, but what do you know about it? But when you close your eyes and you listen to something a little bit beyond, then something happens, right? So this month, the month of Av, is the month of listening. Av, right? The month of Shimon, right? And the Sefer Yetzirah also says that the letter of the month is the letter Tet, which stands for Tov. that we're supposed to bring out and elicit the inherent good, which is within the negativity of the month. The negativity of the month, now we look at the month, we're like, this is bad, right? But when we go deeper and we listen, then we're able to hear a lot more. And by hearing, then we're able to cause the transformation. In the words of Kabbalah, that's called hamtakat adinim b'shoshan, that the sweetening of the judgments are in their root. In other words, you can't overcome we could even call it a trauma, a trigger, unless you face it. Unless you face it and hear it and look at and feel it, you can't overcome it. Because you could only overcome it by allowing its scary face, right? In a controlled way. And hopefully if you have someone to help you on that journey, to kind of help you through that, then you're able to face that side, that darkness, right? And that darkness that we feel, again, the first 15 days of the month of Av are extremely intense and dark and traumatic on many levels throughout history, going back, all the way back to in the desert, where they cried for no reason. The spy, they said, we're not going into the land. And that was the beginning of the Tet Be'av, right? The 9th of Av, the letter Tet, right? They went right in there. But after the 15th, then we come to the full moon and we come to an awareness. And this is the parsha that we read afterwards. Vaya Eikev Tishmun. That after going through whatever we went through, then we go to the parsha of Eikev, and we're able to listen, and we're able to now pay attention to those parts of ourselves, the Eikev parts of ourselves, those unconscious parts of ourselves, the desensitive parts of ourselves, the Eikev, the heel, that we've been thinking that is actually me, that is actually who I am as a person. I just react in that way. That's the story we've been telling ourselves for so long. This is me. I realize, no, that's a reaction that I have. And I'm really beyond my story. I'm really beyond what I've been telling myself, that this is who I am. Eikev Tishmun. So before I get to this concept that Rav Tzadok shares, which is a beautifully profound concept, there's a bunch of very contradictory wording, grammatical wording in this verse. So it says, Vaya Eikev Tishme'un. So in Hebrew, the word Tishme'un is plural. Et hamishpatim ha'elu shmartem, plural. Vasitem otam, plural. And then it says, V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha. It's singular. It switches. The verses switch from being plural to Shamar lecha. It says V'shamar lachem. Va'ekev tishmeun et hamishpatim ha'elu shmartem. V'asitem otam. Why does it all of a sudden switch and says V'shamar Hashem lecha? Right? Why does it say that? It all switches off from plural to singular. It says it switches off to what?
We have to do everything, and he is one.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
The answer?
Okay. So this leads us now to what Rav Tzadok says about the gematria, the numerology of Eikev, right, is how much? 172. Okay. Now, what's special about 172? Okay, Eikev. What's special about 172 is those are the exact words that are found in the 10 Commandments. Right? We've got the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments have Shalom Aleichem. The 10 Commandments have 172 words. That's what Tzadok says. So 172 words that in the first commandments, in the right, we know that we've got the first commandments and then the second commandments. The first commandments were 172, And then the second commandments, Rav Tzadok says, have an additional 17 words to them. Okay. So if we read it in Parshat Vayetchanan, as opposed to Yitro, right, it's got an extra 17 words to them. It says why? What's the idea? What's the difference? What's the discrepancy over here? So he says that the whole idea, once again, of Eikev Tishmeun, of going inwards and understanding that, once again, that the month, that the energetic requirement that we have and the opportunity that we have is the transformation from the negative, the first 15 days of the month of Av, and to transform that into Tet, the letter of the month, into Tov, right? Tov is how much? Right. So he says that we have received we read the second commandments right after Tisha B'Av, right after the 17th of Av, right? Right after the 17th of Av. Why? After the 9th of Av, I'm sorry. Why is that? Because through the what we've gone through in the hardship, in the difficulties that we've experienced in the state of destruction, we've now received a new Torah. Okay. Sorry? Say that again.
It's through the somatic, what I'm hearing from you is through the somatic experience. It's like it's alchemized.
Exactly. Through the somatic experience, through the difficulty, through the hardship, we've now overcome and we've now experienced a new level of Torah.
It becomes an embodied experience.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
An imprint of the suffering that we had to go through and transcend and open up the trauma and abide in it to be able to transform it.
Yes, and that's a newfound Torah that we have now gained, right? Because what is this concept? Beautifully said. What is this concept of Torah, right? Torah comes from above. There's two levels of Torah. Torah comes from above. God gave it to Moshe, Torah Shebechtav, but then there's something called Torah Shebal Peh, which is the second tablets, the difference between the first tablets and the second tablets. The first tablets, Gematria 172, right? Eikev, we received the 10 commandments from above. But in the second commandments, the second tablets, there's an extra 17 words, Gematria Tov, added to that, because we've gone through the experience, we've gone through the hardship. So in the first tablets, we received it. We were on the level of fixing in the Garden of Eden. Basically, we came back to a place of fixing. We were on a very, very high level. But the second tablets, we went through becoming what is called the Baal Tshuva, master of return. That's what a Baal Tshuva is. Becoming a master of return, that in the
you earn it now.
We've earned it.
First time it wasn't earned, it was received.
It was received. It was
lost.
It was lost.
The same means that it was received.
Exactly.
And then going through the whole descent enabled
for the ascent.
Yes.
Right. And that's exactly that. So we go through Tisha B'Av, which is the destruction, but within that there's a newfound Torah. There's a Torah that comes out through the destruction. There's something new. We know that Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av. Something new is happening. Torah Shel Mashiach is happening on Tisha B'Av. Right? There's a newfound, and there's a newfound experience that is waiting to be birthed in the world. And that's what Reb Tzadok says. And that's why we read that the second tablets right after or corresponding to the time of Tisha B'Av, and why we always read Parshat Eikev after Tu B'Av, because after Tu B'Av, after the fullness of the moon, then we're able to now be entertaining and be able to understand that what we've gone through, the difficulty that we've gone through, the Eikev that we've gone through, is really for our greatest form of healing. That at this point we're able to unleash really a tremendous level of inner healing, of inner transformation. So that's why he says. So going back to what we were saying, we're asking the question: Vaya Eikev tishmeun is plural. Et amishpatim shmartem vasitem. It's all plural, right? And then it says, V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha, and then it goes into singular. What's the switch in why is it it's not grammatically correct, right? If we read it that way. So Michaela was saying, because it's referring, so she says things that are like, she just gets into sync. She's like, because it's God and he's speaking to each and every one of us. So that's what's the V'shamar Hashem lecha. So Rav Tzadok says it in that way because Eikev refers to the second tablets, and it refers to taking the multiplicity, Eikev tishmeun, taking that multiplicity of ourselves, tishmeun et hamishpatim ha'ele, which refers to where does multiplicity really come from? Well, it comes from our perception of that there's exactly, we're body and soul, where we've got all these things going on within us. We've got mashper, exactly. Right, we've got all these parts of ourselves. Eikev tishmeun, I'm hearing, but I'm also hearing, like, spirituality, but I'm also hearing my material, physical self. I'm hearing I want to go to, like, do something very profound, but I also want to go and have, a slice of pizza. Nothing wrong with that, but like whatever it is, we live in a duality. Exactly. We have this duality. Eikev, the level of Eikev takes us to the place of now when we're able, you said it perfectly, the idea of somatic experience of going within ourselves, within the body, that when we're able to go into that part of ourselves, then we're able to go to the root of the multiplicity, that the multiplicity is only a perceived level of multiplicity. But in truth, it's really all one. And that's why it says Vaya Eikev. Eikev is the 10 commandments, right? Is that the letters in the 10 commandments of the first commandments, but then through the second commandments, which we've just heard in Parashat Vayitchanan, then we're able to go to the level of really hearing. Eikev tishmeun, we're hearing both parts of ourselves. Ushmartem, and then we've safeguarded them. Vasitem, thank you, appreciate that. Feels like the desert here. we're getting the Torah, right? Experiential, but you don't want me to faint. A well of Miriam. Thank you.
Just can you say a few more words about
yeah.
This process of transformation, how Tuba plays into
Yes, absolutely.
That's something I pushed.
Yes. So we had a whole in-depth class last week about Tu B'Av, but definitely going to touch upon that. But so that takes us to the plural, to the singular. Because when did we become Anochi Hashem Elokecha? That God spoke to the 600,000 souls. Anochi, I am Hashem Elokecha, the God, your God. Asher Otzeticha, took you out. Me'eretz Mitzrayim in Beit Avadim. Lo yelecha, not lachem. Anochi Hashem Elokechem. For all of you, no. It's finding that singular experience, that personalized experience, that Hashem, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, that God is my God. Right? There's that book, right? Like Chaim Potak, right? My God. Like he found that, went through, this whole experience of finding my God, right? Finding, his personalized experience, right? David HaMelech says, Ani adati ki gadol Elokim, right? Ki gadol Elokim. So Rabbi Nachman says on that, Anochi ani adati ki gadol. Like, what do you mean? I know, like nobody else knows. What does that mean? So Rabbi Nachman says that that David HaMelech came to that place of I know that God is great, because I know goes to the personalized experience, right? The Zohar says, Noda b'sha'arim bala, that her husband is known in the gates. Noda, so the Zohar says that a person is known b'sha'arim, in the shi'urim, in the ability to open up the gates, b'shi'ura delay, in his or her gates, in his estimation. If your gates are this small, then you're not going to know that much. But if your gate is this much, then you're going to know, not because someone else tells you, but because you know, right? Zekeli vanveu, this is my God, and I will praise him. Elokei avi, the God of my father, va'aromemenu. The Holy Shla says, Zekeli, this is my God, vanveus from the lashon, from the word anivahu, me and him. Zekeli, when you say this is my God, but if it's Elokei avi, the God of my father, I've heard about it. It's an experience that is passed down to me. It's super great and important and amazing. But Elokei avi, it's the God of my father. Va'aromemenu. What's aromemenu? He's exalted. He's far away. Like, I'm living we could say a life of multiplicity, a life of duality, because Torah or being from or being whatever doesn't mean that much to me, because it's something that I've just grown up with. It's something that was handed over to me. It's the God of my father. It's so therefore aromemenu, right? And this is something that so many people feel nowadays. So many young kids, that are born, we could say, in the system, and they don't even know what they have, what kind of an amazing system, because, they're handed over, a set of rules that they're like, I didn't sign up for these rules. You brought me into this world, and now I have these rules, and what does it mean to me? But the only way that they are going to get to that experience is if they become a Baal Tshuva themselves, because they're born as tzaddikim. They're born as being born into the system. But unless you're a Baal Tshuva, unless you come to it on your own, unless it's your God, then aromemenu, then it's exalted, then it really doesn't speak to me that much. And other things speak to me way more. Other things are way more entertaining. Other things are way more engaging than, some ideas, or these values or whatever it is. The values don't mean that much to me because it hasn't been explored by me. This past Shabbat, we spent a beautiful Shabbat in our friends in Herzliya, in our Suf. And there was a very nice young Italian boy that grew up in the system, right? He had dreadlocks, and I was like, really? You grew up in the system? Yep, I spent all these years in the yeshiva system. He's like, but now I consider myself a Baal Tshuva, returnee. I'm coming back. And he says, now I'm finally I'm experiencing what Yiddishkeit and what Chassidus, what Chabad, what it means to me, because he had this time of being off, we could say off the derech. He had the time of doing his thing, basically. But now he's finally experiencing, things as a Baal Tshuva. And this is really the whole story of Parshat Eikev, of we're here right now, of understanding the heel. Once again, going to what we started off with, Vaya Eikev Tishme'un. There's two explanations. Eikev refers to the mitzvot that a person tramples over them. Eikev, those triggers, those parts of ourselves that we trample, the unconscious part of ourselves. The Eikev, that when we heed them, that when we pay attention to them, finally, Eikev Tishme'un, oh my God, Shamar Hashem Elokecha, all these immense blessings are going to come down. Why? Because I've just paid attention to why I scream at someone, why I react in a certain way, why, I'm drawn to whatever it is that when I listen a little bit more to what is happening beyond the triggers, when I listen in, once again, Tishme'un, the month, the sign of the month, or the tribe of the month is Shimon, right? The listening, the going in and listening. When I listen in to, I'm triggered, I'm upset, and then to be in a bad mood for the whole day or for a week, that right? Or why am I upset? What is it about this situation that got me to feel the feelings that I'm feeling, and to just go into the feeling? Because when we go into the feeling of, oh, I know this is what I'm really wanting. This is what I'm really lacking, or that I feel that, I feel this way because when I was whatever in fifth grade, I had this experience, and therefore I'm feeling these kind of feelings. And it's totally like that, isn't it? Like we go back, we have experience, we have triggers, and we react in certain ways because we feel somewhere inside of us as that little child that this and that happened to them, and via Eikev, they're parts of us that are unconscious, that are there, that are buried, that are years and years have not been listened to. Via Eikev tishmeun. But when you start to listen to them, when you start to question, you start to say, stop, put your hands on your heart even, right? So I'm feeling this. Why? What is arising? Like, what is coming up for me? Why am I feeling this way? Not just to subdue it and to go on with your day and to be in a worse mood because you haven't allowed that feeling to really be expressed and to be heard, right? But when you listen to it, and this is exactly the whole story of the month of Av, the first 15 days, we're listening to a lot of trauma. A lot of stuff is coming up, like, right? We could bury it and say, oh my God, let's get past these 9-day period. It's just like intense. Versus, as we said before, hamtakata dinim beshosham, that when we want to sweeten the judgments, says it's only when you go to the root of them. It's only when you face them. Yeah. So Tisha B'Av is a holiday because we really go right to the wound. We face it, but it's not a negative thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a very positive thing. It's a very healing thing because we finally listen to what all this dark side and all this, all these traumas that are going on inside of us. We're listening to them. We're hearing them. And then we go after that, after Tu B'Av, we have Parshat Eikev. Because after that first half of the month, where Tzadok says we have the full moon, and now after the full moon, we can now go back and say, wow, I'm able to go to a more expansive place within me. I'm now able to receive the new Torah, right? The second tablets, in Parshat V'etchanan. Now it's Eikev, 172, but you add 17 to them. Tov, the letter of the month of Av. We're able to sweeten the month of Av by going into that space. Vaya Eikev Tishmun, and it's plural. We go to the place of plural. There's the plural. There's that part of us that we're engaged in. We're listening to. I'm listening to this part of me, but also this part of me. This trigger is saying, like, I want to like pounce at this annoying individual, versus there's a part of me that's more mindful, that's saying, chill out, relax, take a deep breath, and let's go into the feeling. And where does that come from? So tishmeun, right? Ushmartem, vasitem, you guard it, and then you act in that place because it's a level of multiplicity, and then it's singular. Vishamar Hashem Elokecha lecha, it becomes your God. You've now earned this entry into this space of oneness, of this communion, of being connected to that oneness of you. Zekeli vanve. This is my God, and I'm with Him, right?
It's like a reference point that now is a body. It returns to it.
Exactly. We return to that place of the 10 commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. We've gotten the 10 commandments. So the 10 commandments and the Torah, which is found within us. We've got a new Torah that we're birthing all the time. There's a Torah of Mashiach that's being birthed. It says that the Torah is not going to be changed. Torah ina muchlefet, the Maimonides says, But there's Torah Shel Mashiach, that our Torah, our way of understanding the Torah is hevel, is nothing compared to Torah Shel Mashiach. What does that mean? The Torah is all there. You know, you could just read it. You could just go through it. No. When Mashiach comes, this idea of Mashiach coming, Mashiach being birthed and going through all of this transformation, collective transformation, which is happening. Well, guess what? That Torah of Mashiach is a newfound understanding that is way beyond anything that we could understand. So we birth it, right? We come to it, and we become transformed by it.
Is it the transcendence of duality?
Yeah. It
the mass enlightenment, the waking up.
Exactly.
To that ultimate reality to you. Actually, that's really going on.
Exactly. We're going into it. And the only way that we could go into it, and I think this is such a huge thing, we had this conversation about somatic healing and going into the body, right? You know, this notion of listening to very physically to foods that we eat. Why do foods, you know, our body is telling us something. Our body, again, is that place of being one. It's the level of, Chassidus calls it atzmos, that we're able to connect on a level that even transcends the mind. It transcends the emotions. It transcends everything. It goes right into the core. And that's the level of Eikev Tishmun, that when we're able to go into that place of the heel. So if it's okay, I'd like to maybe for us to do like maybe a short 5-minute meditation. Okay.
Can we just turn that off?
Sure.
I'm feeling my body.
You're feeling your body. I hear you. It's the hot and cold, right?
Yeah, the extremes were bad.
Yeah, we could shut it for sure.
Thank you. Or I mean, I could change this also.
That's not really so good enter L.
Yes.
It's like almost like
Goes into it goes.
this like beginning of like looking at the womb and like then going deeper and then being able to enter the L a little more.
Yes, that's beautiful. And Elul is the mazel of Elul. The sign of Elul is the Basula, Virgo, and that's the idea. That's the idea of the maiden, the feminine, and it has to do with basically, well, what's the feminine? The concept of the feminine is more of the intuition, by Eikev tishme'un, whereas male, right, in Kabbalah we've got seeing and hearing. Seeing is more of a male attribute, right? Chokhmah has to do with the eyes, with the seeing, whereas Bina is the feminine, is hearing, is contemplating, is reflecting, is the intuitive part, right? So Parshat Eikev Tishmeun takes us into Shabbos Mevarchim of Elul, where we go into that mazel of Basula, of the Virgo, the idea of the feminine, and contemplating the whole idea of tshuva, right? The month of really of tshuva.
Purification with the Virgo energy.
Yeah.
Honing it all.
Yeah. Going into ourselves, right? So I'd like to just maybe take like 5 minutes, if that's okay. And we could all put our hands on our heart, if that feels good, if that feels aligned to you. And taking a couple of breaths. And the goal of this exercise, of this meditation, is for us to be able to identify within our body a trigger that you may have felt today or in the past week. Okay. So allowing that air to just go through you from the crown all the way down to your Eikev, to your heel. Breathing in from your crown and allowing the breath to go down through your spinal cord and let out through the heel of your feet. Now breathe in through your heel, taking that breath up through your spine, all the way up to the crown. Breathing in through your crown, all the way down to your heel. And alternating that breath. What is interesting is that when we breathe in this type of a way, we sometimes lose track of where's the mind. In many ways, the heel is a mind of itself. And the head is really secondary. Whereas in the understanding level, the mind is superior and the heel is secondary. So if you can identify a trigger that you felt perhaps today, could have been in the supermarket, in traffic, someone that you've met that triggered you. You could visualize and bring forth that experience. Maybe even see that face or encounter that experience and feel it within your body. What is that feeling, that sensation that's found within your body? The reaction that you feel. Watch it. And watch yourself perhaps wanting to escape that feeling. Try not to escape that feeling. Try to see that feeling and that person perhaps. And watch from above the encounter. And if you can go a layer in, where is the reaction coming from? What is it inside that you feel bothers you? And if you would ask yourself, where was the first time that I felt such a sensation, such a feeling? When did I first feel it? A similar feeling. You can even ask your body that. You will receive an answer. It may be when you were a child. It may be when you were an adolescent. And you could just watch in the safe place that you're in now. and see what is it that you are actually looking for and did not receive. Vaya Eikev tishme'un. To listen in. And give yourself whatever is needed or was needed back then. And excuse the reaction, because it's not really you. It is a reaction to something that you need. When we realize that everything that we need is given to us from God, from Hashem, Tishme'un, and we go to that source, V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha. It's an individual relationship, and it's a source of strength. Take in that source of strength, which is Hashem, infinite source. That is there to draw upon at all times, whenever you call upon that strength. All it takes is listening. Okay, so let us count to 3 and then open up our eyes, rejuvenated, strengthened, and more attentive to our inner worlds. 1, 2, and 3. All right, everyone. Wishing you many, many blessings. And it is quite warm in here, Baruch Hashem. So it really served as a cleansing. I feel cleansed by this experience as well. That's what my body is saying. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed. You're welcome. And thank you, Des. Thank you, Brenda. And thank you, Diana. Wishing you a beautiful Shabbat. And may we all find this inner honing of listening in a little bit more, because this is what's needed now during the times that we're in before Mashiach. Listening to the healing, to the heal. Healing brings geula. Listening to that heal, the Eikev the Mashiach is going to bring geula. God wants to bring geula. He's there. He's bringing it. But he's like, are we able to listen in a little bit more, a little bit beyond the surface?
We have so many stories inside. What we are looking for stories.
We're looking for reels, new reels and stories, but they're not Shira's reels, because Shira's reels are worth it. They're worth it.
Now you made me see
Check.
story.
They're the best. What Shira's show, guys, everyone. Good stuff. All right, everyone, many blessings. Shabbat shalom, and happy continuous Tu B'Av that we're taking in, receiving the new level of Torah for a new beginning, and being to healing our heel.
Amen.